Hey y'all, it's Cyber Saloon. So I know it's been a hot minute since I've last uploaded a video, but I saw Sword Art Online Scherzo of Deep Night, and I'm a massive Sword Art Online fan, so I really wanted to talk about this movie. I really liked it a lot. So Scherzo of Deep Night is a sequel to Aria of a Starless Night, which is based on Reki's new series Progressive, which focuses on Asuna and Kirito, kind of in the lower levels of Aincrad, which is kind of what we always wanted. Like, one of the main things that when I finished the first season of Sword Art Online, and I think most people when they finish the first season of Sword Art Online, like the lower floors, like they never really, we get to see a little bit in the first couple of episodes, but kind of seeing what happens from the assault team, what happens with Kirito, especially with Asuna in the lower floors, is kind of left like as a mystery. Like, we never really find out what happens, which is why I absolutely love that Reki started this new series Progressive, which kind of follows Kirito and Asuna in their adventures as they kind of go up as partners in their relationship, as it kind of develops as they go through the lower floors together. Because after I saw Aria of a, I didn't really know Progressive was a thing. When the Aria of a Starless Night came out, I saw it, I really liked it, and then I actually bought all the light novels, when I really, really like them so far. I really like the way that the relationship kind of develops, and I really like that it focuses on Asuna a little bit more, especially in the first movie, and it also helps her develop a little bit more too. Her kind of arc that she has is really, really good. Just coming from a player someone who never really even played video games that much, who really didn't know too much about them, to getting thrown into Sword Art Online, where in her arc of becoming to where she's just completely scared, doesn't want to leave, and just kind of gives up on life, and becomes a desperate loner, and basically is on like a suicide run, just trying to clear the game. To finding to her and Kirito, kind of giving her a little bit of not a purpose, but just kind of shoving her in the right direction to help give her a purpose to kind of find. I really, really enjoy that, and you kind of see this in Aria. You see this in Aria of a Starless Night, and you definitely see it in the novels as well. To where by the end of book one, like as floor one starts, like when Kirito finds her, trying to clear out that dungeon, and she's just like carrying 3 of every item. She doesn't do any equipment checks or kind of do any equipment maintenance at all, really. And she's basically just in the dungeon, just going ham, just trying to just fight everything, to the point where she literally just passes out, and then Kirito finds her. They are really reluctant allies by the time that they start that floor 1 boss, and by the end of it, they realize, like, oh, we actually work pretty well together, and they really do kind of hit it off. So, like, by the end of floor 1, like, Kirito and Asuna become, like, really, really good friends. Not good friends, but they become, I would say, acquaintances. By the end of floor 2, which they kind of skipped in the movie, I'll talk more about that. I'm going to do a separate upload for Aria of a Starless Night, because I do really want to talk about that movie. And honestly, just Progressive as a whole, because in the first book, they do clear the first 2 levels. By the end of floor 2 in the books, they're definitely, I would say, friends. By the end of floor 3, you start to see that they're really becoming really good friends. And by the end of floor 4, you start to see something a little bit more develop. And especially by the end of floor 5, you kind of see it, especially at the end with that scene with Asuna. You kind of see where that friendship starts to kind of turn into something else. And just, I love seeing the new levels and the new bosses and everything that you kind of get to see in the lower levels of Aincrad. I really liked Aria of a Starless Night. I really want to get into, I'll talk more about that in my review, but I thought Scherzo of Deep Night was better than Aria of a Starless Night, and this is why. So, one of the big reasons is Aria of a Starless Night kind of retreads. It obviously adds new material, but it kind of retreads episodes 1 and 2. It's just from Asuna's point of view, which I really like. But this one kind of focuses a little bit more on Kirito and Asuna. When they're first starting out, at the beginning of the movie, they're like clearing out the floor 4 boss, and I thought that was really cool how they're fighting it, and I guess it's a mechanic to where you're like, oh yeah, like, the boss floods the room, and then Argo comes in clutch and kind of just opens the door and releases the water. I thought that was really cool, and I'm glad that Argo gets the shine in this one as well. I think Argo is a really cool character. If you remember from season 1, she really only gets like 1 scene, and that's the one where the Moonlit Black Cats get completely slaughtered, and Kirito feels guilt about it, and he goes to kill that deranged-looking Santa. Argo, I think that's the only scene that I remember from the anime where Argo's even in it, so I'm glad she kind of gets a little bit more shine, because I think Argo is actually a really cool character. I liked Argo a lot. I really like her nickname that she calls Kirito. She calls him Key Boy. Every time she calls him Key Boy, I always laugh. I think it's just fun. It's a funny nickname. I really like the movie because Mito actually isn't that much. I don't like Mito as a character, and I'll definitely go more into that when I do my Aria of the Starless Night. There's a good reason for that, and it's not just because like she takes out a little bit of time to where they didn't really have enough time to do the floor 2 stuff. There's a reason I think that Progressive works a little bit better without Mito, just from Asuna's kind of character standpoint, from how she starts. I kind of get why she's in it, but still, I'll talk a little bit more about that. But I don't hate her, but I am kind of glad that she's not in it too much, because I thought she was in Aria of a Starless Night. I thought she was in it a little bit too much. I think by the time that when she left, I was like, okay, they probably could have done a little bit more with Asuna before she met Kirito but overall, I thought I really liked it. I love this seeing the new floor. That's one of the main things I really like about the Progressive series, is just seeing how different like the floors were. If you like floor 3, they skipped it, but like floor 3 is like this really cool kind of water world. I thought the boss of floor 3 is actually really cool. They didn't really show much of. They didn't show anything really of floor 4. But floor 4 is really cool. It's like that giant. The boss is like that giant horse that basically releases like a giant torrent of water. But seeing floor 5 is really cool. Like I like seeing like the way that each floor is kind of developed in Sword Art Online is really, really fun. Like my favorite floor from what we've seen from Aincrad is probably Selmsburg. It's where Austin ends up buying her giant flat like a little bit later in season 1. It's that really like picturesque, like beautiful floor, like where there's like the giant lake, and it's like always like it's the sunset over there. It's really, really cool. But seeing the new floors, like this in this one, like it's like there's ancient ruins everywhere, and I like just seeing how different like each floor is from each other. And just like when Kirito and Lisbeth ended up going, like that whole floor was like a giant ice floor. Each floor is really unique and really different. I wish we kind of got to see a little bit more of that, because we do get to see a little bit like that shot when they're about to go into the boss raid, and you see that giant labyrinth and that how it's kind of sprawled out. I wish that we kind of got to see a little bit more of that, but seeing that it is a movie, it's not so much it's not like a full anime season itself. I guess you don't really have too much time to delve into it. I really like seeing the early information, like the early days of like the guild formation, like the ALS and the Dragon Knights. I thought it was really well done, like the way that the guilds were kind of bickering, and like and Austin and Kirito kind of see that like both of those guilds are needed in order to actually clear the game, because they understand like, hey, these like because right now like the guilds are like they're like competing against one another, but it's like it's turning from like competitiveness, like a competitive spirit, to the point where they want to undermine it, which is the whole point of this movie in the first place, because the floor boss of floor 5 ends up dropping this like an item that ends up giving a bunch of buffs to the whatever guild that has it. You can only use it once, so like whatever guild gets it and engraves it in the flag, like it gives a bunch of buffs to like all the guild members. So that's why they're all like hardcore fighting over it, trying to get it. One of the other things I really like about it too is it's the foundings of Laughing Coffin, and I really liked Laughing Coffin. Remember when I first saw the first season of Sword Art Online? I remember when it ended, I really liked the first season. Didn't hate it, but like one of the aspects and the elements I had really liked that they did in the first season of Sword Art Online that really never got expanded on originally. We see a little bit more when we got into season 2 with Death Gun, and of course, by the time we got to the Underworld arc, we got to see Poe. But I love Laughing Coffin. I love that idea of. I think it's an element that works very well. That idea of a bunch of serial killers running around in Sword Art Online, knowing that they're killing people, and then the ways they end up trying. I think there's a lot of storylines and stuff you can do with a group like that to kind of make them the boogeyman in SAO. That's why everyone. It makes sense a little bit later. You kind of get a sense of like a lot of people are scared of them by the time you get to the higher floors, because they've killed so many people, and they end up growing. You kind of see the seeds of it when it starts here in Scherzo. You see it with Poe, you see it with Morte. They kind of skips out what happens with Kirito and Morte in this one, but they kind of I think this one's more to kind of set it up. Like I saw some people kind of like, well, it didn't go anywhere, but my read on like why I really liked it, this is like the founding days of like Laughing Coffin. They haven't really done anything yet, and they're kind of like just now starting and sowing those seeds of discord like among all the players. And there's a great scene at the end. I really loved it, like when Kirito and Asuna at the very end after they beat the boss, when they're running out, and you in Poe, like that music that plays. and you just get this sense of dread as he's like stalking them and ends up like taking them at knife point. I really like that stuff, and you kind of get a sense too of like how terrifying Laughing Coffin ends up becoming, because you can imagine that, right? Like if you are in like a party and you're like in a really weird area, especially solo, like you kind of want to give more credence to like props to Kirito and just solo players in general, because if you're going into like a really weird dungeon or like not only do you have to worry about the monsters, but you have to worry about Laughing Coffin just taking you by surprise, and they're going to take no hesitation to kill you in an instant. And you see how terrifying they can be when Poe ambushes them. And I thought that was really well done. Kind of question though. This was the scene I kind of thought was funny. So like when when Mito ends up giving the flag, like when they beat the boss, they give the flag to Kirito, and then you see the ALS come in, and he gives them that condition of like, hey, like the only way I'm ever going to give you this flag is if one, this flag drops again and it's given to the other guild, or two, both guilds have to unite to make one guild. And they're like, well, we're not going to do that. And then the member of Laughing Coffin, which is Joe, like comes about, because we know that was him down there when Asuna initially fell down there in the catacombs. Like you see Joe come up out of nowhere. And he's just like, he even looks deranged. Like he looks like he just got out of a mental asylum. I'm really not sure who does the quality checks or like who kind of like lets people into this guild, because he just looks deranged. And then he's just like, oh yeah, like, where they're not gonna give it to us, we should just like kill them, man. And I'm just like, bro, like this guy is like major sus right now. I was like watching the scene, I was just like the Among Us like suspicious music just starts playing. I'm just like, does no one think that this guy's a little suspicious? Like he doesn't come across as entirely there mentally. I thought that was really funny, but you can just tell he's a complete deranged psychopath. You can kind of tell that what type of player he's going to end up becoming later during the game. I really like that stuff. And then I'm going to be completely honest. One of the main reasons I love Sword Art Online is the Kirito and the relationship between Kirito and Asuna. I love all the side characters that are like Aegil. I really like Klein and all the other ones, Shion. But it's just like at the end of the day, I really love the relationship that Kirito and Asuna kind of have. They have a really strong dynamic. They work really well together, and kind of seeing that relationship between them. It's where I really enjoyed reading from the books. It's why I love Progressive as a series in general, because it's just I always wanted more moments and more of those two, and Ironcrad. Now, of course, we get great moments with them in the Underworld and going forward for the series, but I really like what we got here, because in my opinion, like these are kind of, floors 5 through 7 are kind of like where you find out like they're good friends, but it turns into something more. You can kind of tell with Asuna by the end of this one that she sees Kirito as something more. She kind of starts to fall for him at this point, and Kirito kind of already has a little bit for Asuna at this point as well. I really like that they did that scene. I'm glad they didn't skip out on it. That scene at the end where like they're all like, Kirito doesn't give him the flag. Obviously, he's gonna keep it, and everyone's like walking past him, just like talking trash. And you kind of see it. It's a really good dynamic into his psyche too, because you can he always shrugs it off like it doesn't bother him, which it mostly doesn't, but you can tell a little bit inside that it kind of does. And that scene where Asuna just breaks down and she just talks about how it's not fair, and she kind of like embraces him. I thought that was really good. I thought that scene was really well done. The only caveat is I wish they did that scene a little bit better, because in the books, like Kirito does actually kind of get into his feels like a little bit, because he just from all he's been through and all he's done, like he knows that like she is a little bit right, and it kind of does bother him deep down. So I'm glad they did that scene. It worked out very well, and I also love that scene with them in the catacombs, like when he finds Asuna again, and she like freaks out, and like she like, because she hasn't quite found that confidence yet. Like we know that Asuna is going to become the commander of the Knights of the Blood. Like we know that she's going to become. She already is that really strong kind of. She has that confidence a little bit, and she's already a complete badass by this point. She's easily one of the best DPS people on the assault team, and everyone knows she's great. But like she hasn't completely found that footing yet to like where she really knows what's going on. Like, and like she puts on a brave face for it. Like when she falls in the catacombs and she finds Amorte and Joe down there, and she ends up losing her sword. Like this is it's like kind of that first time that she's been in that situation. And like after she put on a brave face for it and they got out of it, like she kind of freaks out and was like, it's kind of that first, that kind of first situation that you find yourself into, like a kind of like a close death situation. So she kind of freaks out, and like we see that Kirito's there for them, and you see that partnership and you see that relationship kind of really build in that moment as well. So from what I see going forward, I think they'll end up skipping Canon of the Golden Rule, which is the next floor, and I think they'll probably end up going the Rhapsody of Crimson Heat. The reason I say that is that I can see A1, if they're going to do another film with Progressive, wanting to go that route, because Rhapsody of Crimson Heat is set, like, that floor is it's a casino. It's really, really cool, actually, and there's this thing where Kirito and Austin have to like dress up and look really good in the casino, and it's actually like Kirito looks pretty dapper, and it's pretty great. I think that they would, if they're gonna adapt it, I can see them definitely wanting to adapt Rhapsody of Crimson Heat more than I can Canon of Golden Rule. Canon of Golden Rule is still really good, but I think they'll end up probably going with Rhapsody of Crimson Heat, just because I think that, from what I remember, it's been a couple months since I've read it. From what I remember, I think that the NPC storyline is a little bit less so in Rhapsody than it is in canon, and they kind of that's one of the things they threw out was the NPC, like the dark elf side quest. You see it a little bit, like they acknowledge it's kind of there, because there's like the bath scene with Argo and Asuna, like they're in the dark elf village, but they leave out Kimsel, so which. I'll get more to that when I do my Aria of the Starless Night review. I really want to get into that, because I'm not sure why they just didn't do an anime series. I mean, it may be because A1 is just time crunch and they don't really want to dedicate like a complete season. They really just want to get it out of the way and do it in a movie. And since that side quest isn't really complete, they didn't want to commit it and kind of just do it for the film. They kind of just want to focus on Kirito and also, which I get. But it kind of leaves the door open. What if they wanted to do when Progressive eventually hits its stride and goes into like the later floors, like when Austin is part of the Knights of the Blood Oath, and like Kirito's just out there bowling by himself, like what are they going to end up doing? I don't know if they'll end up going to later down a little bit down the line. I'll talk about that at the end though. But honestly, the movie overall was great. I really, really liked it a lot. Which is why I'm kind of disappointed it didn't do as well at the box office as Aria of the Starless Night actually did. From what I remember, I think Aria of the Starless Night did like $1 million, like in the U.S. Like it did $1 million. And I think Scherzo of Deep Night did about 600,000 to 700,000, which I'm kind of sad, because it's like I think Scherzo is better, and it sucks to just see a downward trend. It did well enough. Like it opened #1 at the Japanese box office, which I'm glad that it does. I just hope it gets a little bit more of a bump from the international scene, just so that Reiki knows that, and A1 knows that there's still definitely that support of people who are definitely still care about Sword Art Online. And I love there's a little Easter egg at the end. So like when they're watching the fireworks after they get away from Poe, you see a Godfrey cameo, and I was kind of confused by this point. I may have just forgotten, but I don't know if Knights of the Blood is already a guild at this point, because you see Godfrey and he's in his Knights of the Blood Oath uniform, and I'm just like, hold up, like I'm just like, which I'm this is why I'm really excited to see the rest of Progressive, because I'm curious to how it kind of explains the Knights of the Blood and how Kayaba kind of becomes like ascended as the guild leader of them, and kind of how he gets Asuna to kind of join as sub commander. I'll probably talk more about that in my Aria video as well, because I want to talk about Progressive honestly as a general when I do that one. But overall, I thought that film was great. If you're a fan of Sword Art Online, I would highly recommend it. Especially if you really like the Aincrad stuff, which, let's be honest, we all do. I mean, I really like the Gun Gale stuff too, but you can't beat classic Aincrad. Like it's just classic. Seeing those lower floors, I thought the new boss was really cool. The new boss is the Golem. It's this really cool giant floor, like this room-sized Golem. And I thought that the fight itself was really cool, and the way that they beat him is really cool. How the crest kind of moves around the room, and it's never in the same place, but it also like comes up and like kind of holds people and like beats them, like it tries to kill them until they actually find it. Because Mito kind of comes in at the end and kind of redeems herself a little bit when she saves Asuna. So I'm really glad. I thought that floor boss. I also thought the track too, like the kind of like the retro bit kind of soundtrack that plays when they're fighting the golem. I thought that was really cool. That's the idea of a golem too as a boss. I mean, I love Terraria, so I'm glad that the golem got some love there. But overall, I thought the film was really good. I would really recommend it if you're a fan of Sword Art Online. I think it's something that you really like, especially if you like a lot of the Ironclad stuff. I'll probably upload. I'm probably gonna do. I really want to talk about Aria of the Stars tonight, and when I do, I want to talk about Progressive more as a series and why why I like it so much. Well, why do you think that? Let me know what y'all think. If you did see Scherzo of Deep Night, let me know what you guys thought of it below, and why do you think it didn't do as well at the box office as Aria? I'm not sure as to why it didn't. Again, from my perspective, I just thought it was a better movie. But some people it might have not connected as well. I'm not sure why, because again, Aria is kind of like a retelling of Floors 1 and 2, but certain other people, I guess, might not have liked it as much as 1. But let me know what you guys, if you did see it, let me know what you thought of it below, and if you plan to see it, tell me when you plan to see it. All right, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.